Thanks everybody for being here tonight. We're very happy and honored with the presence of Christopher Hitchens and Arato tonight here, Stacy McGoldrick, and myself. I'm going to speak slowly, although briefly, because because I'm jet lagged, like everybody else here on the table. Coming from Morocco, Christopher Hitchens, New York, Arato. I just came back from India, and Stacy from Pomona. And many of my students here from Valencia and some other people, LA is the only place on earth that you can get jet lagged by driving. You know? So let me start by referring to how Stacy McGoldrick and myself, former fellow PhD students at the New School for Social Research, we both had the good luck of meeting these two scholars and public intellectuals, Arato and Christopher Hitchens at the New School. Although Stacy will present the speakers in a few minutes in a more careful fashion, I want to anticipate that one of the reasons why we are truly happy to have them here tonight is because I think, if I'm not wrong, both their intellectual practice and scholarship embody what the School of Critical Studies at CalArts believes critical discourse should and can be. And moreover, because their presence here today marks, I'm sure, one of the highest points of REDCAT's contribution to the revitalization of the public space in downtown Los Angeles. But I want to introduce today today's panel by making a reference to another public intellectual and scholar and political thinker, the political thinker that made me go to the New School for Social Research in the first place. Her name was Hannah Arendt. And the reason I'm referring to her is not only because it's one of the many other common things between those of us here today, but because I will use only the first notion of her that inspired me. It was her notion of action. And for Arendt, to put it simply, action was the human capacity to begin something new, to start processes that, although initiated by individuals or groups, nobody, particularly not those individuals or groups, can really know for sure what outcomes those actions will have. And this is due to the fact that their meaning and their effects are beyond the actor's control and are constituted by the action's inscription in what Hannah Arendt called the web of relationships and enacted stories characteristic of human plurality. So the reason why I think action is important here, because the Bush administration in particular, but also many others, often claims that 9/11 has changed everything by saying so. They are in fact, I think, attributing to the 19 hijackers' actions the power of having changed the world. If this were true, however, it would mean that the dominant characteristic of our time, both domestically and internationally, would still be the continuation of the global sympathy for the victims and solidarity with the American-led actions in Afghanistan that dominated the immediate aftermath of the massacre. However, this doesn't seem to be the world in which we live today. And the reason might be that it has actually been the invasion of Iraq and not 9/11 what has inaugurated the domestic and international situation in which we find ourselves today. What has invading Iraq actually done? How was and still is the invasion justified? Keeping in mind, of course, that internationally these justifications at the time didn't persuade the actors and institutions that had to be persuaded. What implications have these actions and justifications had for Iraq, America, and the world? We are meeting here today right after the 3rd anniversary of the invasion. Although it seems clear that for the war planners, we should have by now been able to exercise our retrospective judgment on the war for a long time already. The war should have been over for a while. The conflict is nonetheless still unfolding, and we shouldn't really use the past tense yet. However, this might be also the time to start analyzing the events with a comparatively more detached view of the political thinker, the historian, and the critic, than with a way too self-interested discourse of political actors. It is the time, I think, Stacy and I believe, to seriously start contributing to telling the story that sometime in the future will hopefully tell us what was all this about. So I want to thank you all again for having come tonight and for contributing to our goal of instituting here at REDCAT a space for critical analysis of the major events of our time. I now pass the microphone to Stacy McGoldrick, a friend, close friend, that's why I only know Stacy, ex-fellow PhD student of mine and assistant professor at Cal Poly Pomona.
Hello. Hello. Thank you for coming this evening. I have two tasks that I will do very briefly. First, I am to tell you who these people are, but most of you already know that, so that's pretty easy. And second, I am to tell you why Martín and I were so keen to get these men together, who actually have not met before today, even though they were both at the New School at the same time. So Andrew Arato is a professor of political and social theory at the graduate faculty at the New School for Social Research. He's a well-known scholar of the Frankfurt School in critical theory. He has written about democracy and civil society. He's written several articles in publications like Dissent and the New Left Review. He's also one of the editors of the Journal of Political Theory Constellations. About this situation in Iraq, in particular, some of his noted articles are called Sistani versus Bush, Constitutional Politics in Iraq, The Occupation of Iraq and the Difficult Transition from Dictatorship, and Civil Society, Constitution, and Legitimacy. Christopher Hitchens is a well-known public intellectual and writer. He has written in too many magazines for me to list, and has written, I think, 15 books, I counted on the CV. He writes about everything from literature to travel, American culture, religion, and of course, politics. He has written countless articles about Iraq and the war on terrorism, and he's also recently published a book called A Long Short War, The Postponed Liberation of Iraq. So those are who they are. But I also want to explain why they're here together. I have to be a little biographical to do this explanation, so I hope you'll bear with me a moment. I recently moved to Pomona. I live in Pomona. I'm proud of it. I recently moved to Pomona to teach at Cal Poly Pomona. And when I got out here, I was very happy that my friend Martín was already living here and teaching at CalArts. And we immediately, as soon as he came back from France, we got together and we just started talking about, we're here, what can we do? When we were talking about the politics of the day. And we were thinking about, could we put something together? What was pressing for us in terms of talking about what's happening today? And immediately our fantasy, like other people's fantasy baseball teams or something, was, was to get these men together to talk about it. This is who we wanted to have a conversation, or wanted to hear their conversation. The reason, fundamentally, is the fact that these two men have had on both of our young scholarship life. Andrew Arato was on both of our dissertation committees. I don't know what Martín's experience was, but I was most afraid of Andrew at my dissertation defense, and which, by the way, he thought I had not properly formulated my idea of the state, and I'm trying to work on it. Christopher Hitchens, I first met when I was sitting in on a class of his where he discussed English and American literature and thought, and I was fascinated by him and pressed him